So shalom everyone, good evening everyone, and welcome. We start Mitzvah Hashem with God's help a series of 4 lectures. Each week, as you know, is a different title. It's in a way overall is the preparation for the בחודש Elul, for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Tonight, and the topic, which obviously it's a hard subject, but see how we can go over that. It's getting set for the high holidays of a lifetime. We all know that this year it's a total different atmosphere, energy, spirituality, mindset than the past years that we are together. So first I'll start with a kind of personal notes. It's not so personal, but I would like to dedicate the study tonight, the shiur, to the late Marvin Seckler. Not only as a wonderful friend and brilliant, but someone that I had the privilege to know for 18 years and did editing for my books and being the one who helped distribute Judaism to the world. So I would like to start with a little story related to late Mr. Seckler. Every year I have the privilege at this time to prepare the high holidays with him, which we call lovingly Marvin, the Sifrei Torah and the not only the Torah scroll, but also the ark and setting up many other small things. And those who know him, he was very much with the Jewish spirituality and Jewish music and more. And while we are standing there and preparing the Sifrei Torah, he asked me to chant with him the high holidays melody. So in that spirit, I'm just starting the way that we used to, for a couple of hours, prepare the Sifrei Torah, and we chanted like, and we are rolling the Torah, which takes time because the 2 Sifrei Torah in the social hall and the 2 Sifrei Torah in the sanctuary, it's the beginning of Bereshit, the Torah reading for the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and the second day of Rosh Hashanah, it's the early part of the beginning of the Torah, the story of Abraham and Sarah, the story of binding Isaac. So it takes time to roll the Torah to that location. And we, in addition to have a discussion of deep thoughts of who and what, who's getting the honor and how they get the honor, and how not to step on anybody's toes, and how to make sure that every single person receive the proper kavod, the proper honor, and who is going to use and which Torah. We also takes time to roll those Torahs. Obviously, I'm going to miss him greatly. And in that spirit, which is the nusach hatfilah, the chanting, the singing of the prayer, some rabbi said that that's going back to the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, that we as a Jewish people have in Jerusalem in the early days. And I may suggest that in that spirit that instead of have a sad note of all the hardship that we all went through this year, we may be all at this time to have it a little bit in the upbeat note, like a little faster. So when we chanted, it should be like a little bit bit of hope and bit of optimism, because obviously if we review the year, especially the past several months, and all the things that we went through individually and collectively, it's hard to describe, or for some people is almost like unbearable to think. Some of you expressed their hard feeling of adjustment, not to be with their children, or children just don't live together with them and they cannot be together for services, which is obviously hard for all of us. Gail will tell you how much energy and time she spent every single day, God bless you, Gail, for almost like from 6 in the morning to midnight, explaining to people that we have to abide by the laws and more, and say no to people who all those years have their children come and been with them for services. And I can't describe that hard feelings. It's almost like I tried to put together one of the sermons for Rosh Hashanah about the special feeling this year when we hear the sound of the shofar and we blow the shofar. And the whole idea of blowing the shofar is we breathe in the shofar the feeling of life, the essence of life. We put in the shofar all of our being, right? And it resonates in our mind, this strong statement, I can't breathe, which is a very painful statement that, I can't breathe is not just a statement of individual, it's a outcry that many of us have from the depth of our insides. And it's a reflection of something that we have at the very beginning of the Torah, very beginning of Bereshit. We reading how the Almighty God put into the nostrils of Adam, the first man, the breath of life, and he made him the living being, and then his wife Eve, and then the whole humanity that comes from that. I can breathe, and then you have the breath of life, and is a lot of thought and reflection resonate in my heart and mind when I was thinking about the description of both Nusach HaTfilah and hearing the breathing of the songs, and then hearing and blowing the shofar, especially this year, which time allow, I'll go there a little later. But as we said, getting set for the high holidays of the lifetime, it's a broader subject. So I would like to start with Tehillim, with Psalm 27. This is something that our rabbis institute, beautiful idea that we recite every day. Some does it 3 times a day, sometimes twice a day. But it's in the morning service, in the evening service. It's Psalm 27. So I know it's not the best copy, but the idea is from the time that we believe Moses went up the beginning of month of Elul, and he was there 40 days, and then it was the second tablets that they give to us, and after Kol Nidre, we all said, Vayomer Hashem, the Almighty said, Salachti, I forgive because of you. That words come together with the act of Slichot, the Sephardim, that they have this expression of asking of forgiveness. And for us, I just want to give very few minutes to analyze the Psalm 27 and its meaning, especially in nowadays. The first 6 verses speaking about protection. King David, who born and died at the same time and lived for 70 years of life, we owe not only the book of Psalms, not of our prayer, but the essence of the nation, and obviously the temple and Jerusalem and many more. So he wrote the first part, Hashem meaning God, God is my light, my salvation, whom shall I fear? It's a strong word of encouragement. He went through a tremendous war. He went through challenges within his family and extended family and more. And he speaks about God's protection. And he said, God is my light. The rabbi said that that's Rosh Hashanah, the light, salvation, Yom Kippur, whom shall I fear? God is behind me, I shouldn't, God is my strength, whom shall I dread, and more. But then he goes and instead said in verse 7 or verse 9, he said, God, do not hide your face from me. Do not protect me. So at the beginning, do not forsake me, sorry. So the question is, why at the beginning he very much said a kind of words like God is here with me and protecting me, and then he changed his mode and he said, God, do not hide your face from me, do not forsake me. And if you go further, close to the end, he said the words of, don't let the enemies taking over me and my life, deliver me not to the wishes of my tormentors, for they are risen against me false witnesses who breathe violence. So here he is speaking about enemies and the total world of uncertainty. So if you try to analyze the way the commentators analyze this beautiful psalm, it starts with a statement of total strength and certainty, and it ends up by total uncertainty. And one of the rabbis that lived at the early era of the Middle Ages, whose name is Ibn Ezra, a great Sephardic rabbi of the 11th century, explained, and he said, Nir Eli, I assume after studying this subject a lot, that this is a combination, either some part applied to early part of David's life, and the second part is the King David end of the life. Why is that? So if you read, some of you involved with study Tanakh, in the book of Samuel, chapter 21, you see how David slowly and surely, with so many wars and fights and problems and challenges, he grew weary. And he turned so sour at the end of his life that his officer, the chief of staff, the people in charge for the armed forces said, Lo tetzeh od lamilchama, you should not go again to war. And if you go further, the way that the great Abarbanel was a great rabbi in both Spain, Portugal, and he wrote a beautiful commentary. He lived by the end of the 14th century. And he explained that it was the brother of Goliath, whom David, we all know the story of David and Goliath, went again to a war against us, and it was one of his high officers by the name of Elchanan. He was the one who got rid of him, which again, it shows that David was jaded, was tired, was worn out. He was in a total different mindset, which brings us in a way somehow to ourselves and our lives. Think about us last year, or think about us at the beginning of the year and our mindset, and think about us and our approach to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur when we are close to the period of, being either total self-quarantine or in part, and going through all those tremendous changes and challenges that we, and if you try to match the sentences that was written several thousand years ago by King David and try to find the application of 2020, or in the Hebrew calendar, almost 5781, you have, for example, Achat sha'alti me'et Hashem, only one thing I ask of the Lord that I seek, that I dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. So that's an expression of security, that I'm dwelling in the house of the Lord and I feel comfortable in the house of prayer, house of worship. But then you see King David said, please God, do not hide your face from me. Why is that? Because even us in a small scale, if a year ago, some of us were there at the shul every Shabbos or some every day or whatever we can, others come just for the holidays or for Yizkor, others come just for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but we feel secure. I dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. That's what he said earlier. But then King David said, no, I'm uncertain. Don't hide your face from me. So the same King David is now in a total different mindset. And we as his descendants, in some sense, have this reflection, have this feeling that we need to constantly hear the management of the shul keep telling us that it's the place is sanitized, the shul is safe and is secure, and they go the whole process of distancing and more to make sure that we are comfortable, which we never imagined half a year ago, that we need to even think that way. So there is a beautiful psalm that we said during the before the grace after meal and during the holidays. In that Shir Ma'alot, the Psalm of Essence, we said, Hazoim bedim'ah, those who sow in tears, berinai sow, shall reap with songs and joy. So most of the rabbis put in the translation a comma. Those who sow in tears, they shall reap with song of joy. Tziddik, 18th century teaching, it's read the verse as a one verse, said that just remember, you look at our history and our story as a people, as a story of a people, those who sow in tears shall reap with songs of joy. It should all combine, which means that it happens sometimes that, yes, we have all the changes and unexpected situations, such as if we get used to be together and mingle, now it's a social distances, and all of a sudden we wish to be together with our friends and loved ones, and yes, we kind of forced sometimes to be alone, yet we feel love, and vice versa. So you can be alone, yet being loved. You can be the other way around too. So that's what King David concluded at the very end, and he said, "Lulei האמנתי לראות בטוב השם בארץ חיים." Had I not trusted that I will see the goodness of God in the land of life or land of living. So the Midrash tells us that that's what the Rabbi speaks about, partnership with God, that we want to see the light, or Chadash al Tzion Day, we want to see the light of God within our lives. What we said in Purim on Havdalah, Laihudim Haita Ora B'Simcha, that it's a time for us to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to see the act of happiness within the great sadness. Because we live in such a dark moment, such an uncertain world, such a confinement sometimes, and we have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We have to see the hope within all those challenges. So I think that's what King David meant to say when he repeated in different ways this line, Shema Hashem Koli, oh Almighty God, hear my voice when I call upon you, be gracious to me and answer me. This is such an emotional expression that, like, King David said, I'm not taking God for granted, because let's face it, some of us, I'm sorry to use this language, but some of us taking God for granted, taking the fact that we know that God is with us as something that it's obvious. And it's like my teacher used to say, there are two different types of saying thank you. There is just a thank you, and there is another thank you. There is a simple thank you that you just thanking for something basic, and you have a thank you for something that you feel tremendous gratitude toward that. And that's the whole idea of Song of Songs by King Solomon, that he said, Moshcheni acharecha, Almighty God, show me the big picture, show me the light at the end of the tunnel. show me the heart, or that my heart is leaning to the heart of what's the goal of my life in the world. And that's what the rabbi called Rahmana Liba, the Almighty One's heart. What I try to reach in this talk is to give you some guidelines of preparation. So yes, we glance over Psalm 27, which I said we read in the morning and the evening. But from this point, I would like to talk to you a little bit about movies. And what do I mean by that is, as you know, that there are movies and there are movies, and there are quite few movies that we watch, and it's not just watch another movie, it's something that leaves us with an impact, leaves us with a feeling of something inner within ourselves, feel change, feel awakening. So I want to talk to you about one of those movies that I personally have the privilege to watch, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 times, which those who know me, I'm not so much with movies, but this movie hits hard. And I think it's very proper to talk about this movie. I do not think that it's so quote-unquote known or popular movie, maybe the book, but it's not just I highly recommend it. I want also to grasp some point of this movie that teaches an important lesson at this time. The first movie I'd like to talk to you, it's called The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And it's by Mitch Albom. I see some of you nod your head, so that's good to know that you're familiar with the subject. Mitch Albom is also a fellow Jew, but he used to be a sports writer and a wonderful anchor and producer. But that movie, he basically talked about the essence of life, meaning it's a story about a fellow that it's based on a true story, but he was walking in one of those big Luna Park or park, and kids used to come there and play or different, he watched on the big roller coaster children that running up, and he noticed that one of the wires is not hooked properly. And to make the long story short, he jumped and he basically saved a child from death, but he himself died. And the whole movie is about what happened after a person is no longer among the living. And that actor basically, which is a well-known actor, the father of Angelina, but anyway, he quote unquote met 5 people from his previous life, and toward the movie he was able to comprehend a lot of people that he met in his life, and he really couldn't understand why things happen, why things turn in a certain way. I personally, every time I watch this movie, I have tears in my eyes because it hits hard. Talk about people that he went to service with, he talk about different phases in life and see different people. So I don't know how popular per se is that movie, but I think for those who want to have a reflection and preparation for the Yamim Noraim, should make time to see it. I'm just going to share with you very few minutes. David, do you have the little bit the trailer? Thank you.
They're all waiting for a cure.
Thank you. So the idea, just raise your hand for a second. How many of you are familiar with that movie? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So if you want to have a proper preparation for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I think this is an excellent movie because it speaks about life, the value of life, not just forgiveness, but also understanding a certain pattern of behavior toward people that we encounter to our life. We all know that there is a time we have to do something, but we don't seem to feel that it's fair. To forgive the person that did you wrong, be kind to your mean neighbor that did total wrong to you. To be, someone said to me, you know, she's volunteer in a hospital, even they hardly say thank you to her. In order for us to reach our heights and be forgiven and to be blessed for a good year, Judaism teaches us to learn how to get the mindset and understand that life is much broader and the picture is much larger than we see. So in that very moving, touching scenes, you see this fellow that a lot of things happen to him that doesn't make any sense throughout his life. And only after he is no longer among the living, he had the privilege to see his father and try to make a man with his father who was so mean and abusive to him, and really try to communicate with him and to forgive his father and to forgive the people, even among his own family, that hurt him so much. It's part of his life in service, part of his extended family, and more. And because the way that life arranged in his interaction, the only time for him to reach that level of understanding and being at peace within himself happens only when he was helping to save this little girl's life. And then he was granted, if you call it from heaven, to understand 5 people that in a way hurt him so much during his lifetime, and only when he's gone, he's able to meet them in our language in heaven and try to now see the total different picture and see what motivates them and what happened behind that, and then he's able to communicate better with them and with himself. And it's a huge lesson every year when I watch it before Yom Kippur, and especially before Yizkor, it gives me a different understanding of people behavior, of life, of communication of people with people, and to see the bright side of life and to see the biggest picture. So David, if you just give another face, small one I sent you, is a time for him to meet his father. Again, very painful part. Even you didn't see the whole movie, you can get
this old diner.
Yeah.
This old diner is more than a place. It's a time when things were simpler.
But those people inside, they were all hurt.
Accidents, fights, fires. I would have none of it. My heaven would be a place where anyone who ever suffered from Ruby Pier, even for a moment, would be safe forever. Your father, too.
I hated him, you know.
I know.
He was hell on me as a kid, and even worse when I got older. He couldn't hit me no more. He stopped talking to me altogether.
Eddie, anger is a poison. It eats us inside. We think when we hate someone, we hurt them. But hatred is a curved blade. And the harm we do to others, we also do to ourselves.
Why is everything so different than I thought?
Well, when you first came here, do you remember how you felt?
I had no pain, no worry.
No hate. That's because no one is born with anger. We build it over the years with the things we don't say, with the things we bury. When we die, the soul is freed of it, freed to see the truth.
So, what do I gotta do?
You need to forgive your father.
Dad. Dad. I'm here now. I saw what happened. I didn't understand you. I still don't. You beat me. You humiliated me. I was your son. Look at me, Bob. I'm older than you. I didn't know your life. I didn't know you. But I understand now. I'm letting it go. All right? Can we let it go? I forgive you, okay? You hear me? I forgive you, Dad. I forgive you. It's fixed. It's fixed.
Thank you, David. Obviously, we just grasped the point that some people carries anger and disappointment can be even to the extreme with their own father or mother or immediate family that they carry in their heart for even 100 years of their lives, and they only hurting themselves. So one of the things that we getting set up for the high holidays of a lifetime is to see the big picture. Obviously, in the movie, they explain to us the background and why his father was so mean to him and rough to him physically, emotionally, and more. But it's much deeper than that. And again, you hear me say it again and again, that we should watch it so you see why it's so important for us. Before we go to a little discussion, question, answer, I would like to jump for a second to Yom Kippur, because the schedule is that we have next week the Chazan, then Dr. Levy, then Alita. So I want to glance over not just Rosh Hashanah, but a little bit to Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur, this year in particular, there is a very painful Yom Kippur for all of us, because it's a fellow Jew. We all know that for some of us, Yom Kippur is just a day a year that you see everyone. You see people that not in the house of worship all year round. All of a sudden, for Kol Nidre, Iskor, you see them by abundance, no matter who they are, what they are in the life situation, every place in the world, Iskor, Kol Nidre, you see them. And unfortunately, this year, yes, many congregations have different form of virtual services, but let's face it, virtual services, it's different feeling, it's a different environment. Gail keep saying that, and it's so true, that the feeling of hearing the shofar, hearing the cantor, being there is not just the mitzvah, it's a different energy, it's a different environment. And I may add the 2 cents to that is that those, unfortunately, who have either fear, the children told them that it's, or other reason incapacitated, they cannot physically come, which is very painful to all of us to even think that this year on Yom Kippur, not everyone physically will be able to be there. And part of Yom Kippur, as we all know, it's tough, all of us, is cheshbon nefesh. It's the self-search, it's the introspection. And again, this is a movie, I'm sure that many of you watch the movie or even read the book and the movie, or just read the book. One thing I tell you, the movie is a different story than the book. I personally like the movie 100 times more than the book. Again, it's Back to Mitch album, which I think it's very good in that field. And the subject is one of those phases that I'm sure you're familiar. Those who not should watch it if they want to get the feeling of Yizkor and the value of life. And David, if you can share it, the short trailer of Tuesday with Mari. They're based on absolute true stories.
A high-profile sports journalist learns that his old college professor
I'm on the last great journey here, one we all gotta take.
is seriously ill.
Made a really big difference in my life and never even thanked him.
You could still go see him.
It's in Boston. When am I going to find time to go to Boston?
Deciding to say one last goodbye
I can't work. I can't even think here. I gotta do something.
He leaves work
I don't get a hug after 16 years?
I'm so glad you came back. You were one of his favorites.
to pick up where they left off.
I still got time to learn and time to teach my final course.
About dying.
Not about dying, about living.
With only a short time left
When you know how to die, you know how to live.
and problems at home,
I can't just keep going on like this, you know, waiting for you to fit me in. I gotta just think about what I want.
I want you on the road, Mitch.
I can't be with you anymore. I'm sorry.
they begin their final lesson.
You know, dying is just one thing to be sad about. Living unhappily, that's another matter.
How can you just blow in and expect me to come back into your life as though nothing's happened?
Realizing his mistakes
It's about this fear that I had of not just giving love, but receiving it.
Maybe my wisdom isn't what you need.
he gets a second chance
Whatever Maury did that made you write that letter, I want to see for myself.
to make things right.
The ring that you gave me was beautiful.
But you gave it back to me.
Well, when you give it to me again, I'd like for you to do it in person.
Carlton America, in association with Harpo Films, bring you
It's a very simple lesson, Mitch.
the emotional true story
We must love one another or die.
of one man's final journey
Don't you understand? You touched me.
that changed another man's life.
I don't want you to die.
Death ends a life, not a relationship.
Starring Jack Lemmon of My Fellow Americans and Grumpy Old Men, and Hank Azaria of Mystery Men and Godzilla.
I'm gonna come back next Tuesday, okay?
Of course, next Tuesday. We're Tuesday people.
Tuesdays with Maury.
Again, this is one of those well-known book. I think for those who want to get the feeling before Yom Tovim, especially the Yizkor feeling and the meaning of Yizkor and the meaning of Yom Kippur and the value of our lives and self-search and more, I think this is an excellent source to watch, even if you get a chance to read the book and watch it fast. I never get bored watching each album, movies, and reading his beautiful books. Really inspiring writings and acting and more. Before I ask to open for your reflection, I want to give another two quick recommendation for movies, and then be more than happy to hear your comments and more. There are two, again, well-known movies that I think give some type of reflection or response. If you remember, we talked earlier about understanding life, understanding the world, getting set for the high holidays of a lifetime with all the changes. I really think that there are two more movies that give us the right mindset. Again, both of them are my favorite movies. Amadeus is a well-known musical movie, the life of Mozart. Won a lot of awards in the 80s. I watched Amadeus maybe 5 times, maybe 6. I know it's a long movie. When I was teaching University of Maryland, I required the undergraduate students to study with me World Culture 1 and 2 and art history to watch that movie. And one of the reasons is because it's not just the story of Mozart and more, it's the interaction between Salieri and Mozart. And we learned the value of life, how bad jealousy and enviness and the seeking of recognition can lead a person to be so destructive that when so bad that according to some view, even get rid of life of such a master, a young man as Mozart. The jealousy of Salieri and brought him out of proportion, out of any perception. And it's not just obviously the acting and the dynamics, but I gain an important life message by watching Amadeus each time when I'm thinking about what somebody else have or what somebody else gets, how dangerous path of competition and be unhappy with your own law can be. So I think Amadeus is A++ movie, highly recommended, not just for, obviously for the musical part and acting part, and won so many awards. The take-home message from Amadeus is the Mishnah in the Ethics of the Father. It said that kin'ah, the jealousy, the arrogancy, the lust, and the seek of recognition can take a person out of his or her world. And what the rabbis tells us several thousand years ago, you see it again and again and again. No matter what's the name and what's the circumstance, when it turns to have a life that you don't live your own life, but you constantly in a seek of compete with someone else or jealous of someone else, or envy or need the recognition that someone else has, that bring a person to a dark spot in his or her lifetime, which we try to avoid in our very best. The last one is a funny movie. Again, I'm sure you're familiar with Frisco Kid. And I think Frisco Kids is not just in the sense of a funny movie, but it teaches us a life lesson. Frisco Kids teach us, even a Jew that came from Poland and not familiar with America and what's going on here, they call him the rabbi or whatever the name, and he gets to all the strange America and the strange world, and even it's a funny way. It gives us a different perception of life, because if people focus just on the coronavirus and the COVID and the problem, they don't see the full picture. And the full picture, we went through 9/11 and we went through tons of challenges, and people still remember the era of the Great Depression. People remember many other endless challenges that we went as Jews, as Americans, as people. And Frisco Kid just put it in the right mindset to see, again, the big picture, not just the current challenges that we are facing. So to wrap up our talk is basically, I try to have you get set for the high holidays this year in a little different mindset, to understand that even the greatest man like King David went to a different time in his life and different challenges, but overall he understood that there is God there. Sometimes he felt the presence of God in a real act of war, act of challenges. Sometimes he was in a great trepidation of uncertainty, but still have the deep feeling that God is there. So I would like to conclude with PTW. PTW may stand, in Hebrew, it's Savar, Samech Bet Reish, which stand for 3 points. Number 1, P, it's patience, or in Hebrew, Savlanut. Then T is the trust, or in Hebrew, Bitachon. And W stand for will, or in Hebrew, Ratzon. So PTW meaning if we combine the patience, the trust, and the will, and believe that, yes, was the year of all the challenges, but as the Sephardim started the Machzor, started the prayer book on Rosh Hashanah by saying what the Talmud in Tractate Megillah, page 31 said, Ichle Shana v'Kilelotea, all the past year with all the curses and darkness will be over. Tachel Shana u'Birchotea, may this year will be a year of blessing. So therefore, that's what we are saying to each other, Shana Tova. We recognize the challenges, we recognize the hardship of the past year, but we are resilient, we are strong, and we believe that with Hashem's help, this upcoming year will be a year of good health and prosperity and healing and vaccine, and all of our prayer and wishes will come for good. Amen.